Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges.
What have we been talking about for the past 5 weeks? Judges. We have been systematically going through the book of Judges, pretty close to verse by verse, talking about the events and the people within it. And we have arrived at Gideon. Now, realistically, I've tried to pare this down, but I could probably go on for an hour. I know that's the worst news you've ever heard in your entire life. But we won't try to do that this evening. We're going to try to run through the story of Gideon, the event of Gideon, as fast as possible in an effort to kind of get the most out of it and not keep you here for the next 3 hours. It just keeps getting longer every time we talk about it. The story of Gideon is the turning point of the book. Somebody flip to Judges 6.
Oh, it's on page 117.
117 in the Blue
Bible. The story
Bible.
of Gideon, so it's on page 1.
It's verse 11.
I'm sorry, what chapter, what was I saying?
Chapter 6.
118. Page 118 in the Blue Bible. Like I said, the story of Gideon is the turning point of the book. It's the middle of the book. And it has a couple unique characteristics along that line. First off, the story of Gideon focuses a lot more on the judge than the action. We spend a lot more time dealing with the person of Gideon. That's not usual for how the author chooses to recount these events, but he spends a lot of time focusing on Gideon. He wants you to know who Gideon is. He wants you to know the thoughts of Gideon. He wants you to know why Gideon acts the way he does. The author is trying to get you to focus on him. He's trying to get you to focus on his motives in an effort so that we can learn something from it. It also seems to point out the fact that the book is starting to change. Remember, what did we say about the book of Judges? Does it get better or worse as you go?
Worse.
It gets worse, drastically worse. Now all of a sudden we are starting to see that. We're starting to see even the judges are not good. And Gideon's the first example of that, or the most blank example of that, as the book begins to turn. So the beginning of chapter 6 is kind of the beginning of the story of the Midian oppression. The Midians oppressed Israel, and their oppression was very specific. What they did was they would arrive and steal their stuff. So during harvest time, you ever seen the movie Ants? Not Ants, Bug's Life.
Yeah.
Bug's Life. They came out at the same time. The movie of Bug's Life, the grasshoppers show up and steal all the food that the ants have harvested. Literally, almost exactly what is happening here. The circus is in chapter 8. No, what is happening is they do the stuff, they're harvesting their food, and then the Midians show up and others show up and they ride through. The Bible describes them as locusts, and they literally just steal all their food and stuff. That's what they're doing. After 7 years of this, it only took 7 years, they decided to cry out to God and say, we've had enough of all of our stuff being stolen. That's it. We've taken all we can handle. But what's interesting is, instead of sending Gideon first, who does he send first?
Oh, he sends Midian.
No, they're being oppressed by Midian. God sends a prophet. God sends a prophet. He doesn't send a judge at first. He sends a prophet, which begins to show you the decline of the people. We are so far going down this rabbit hole of just nastiness and just sin and idolatry and idol worship that God sends a prophet first and says, you have not obeyed me. You haven't listened. They cry out, God save us, and God sends a prophet. The prophet basically says, you guys have really messed up. You need to stop doing that. You have not heard my voice. You have not obeyed me. Charles Spurgeon says this about this. The Lord does not permit His children to sin successfully. God does not allow His believers, His children, His family to continue on sinning successfully. That's not His goal. God punishes. God brings you back. That's God's goal. God does not allow His children to sin successfully. He says, because you have sinned, I have sent the Midians to steal your stuff. And they don't really like that, so they keep crying out to God. So let's go to Judges chapter 6, 11 through 18. We're going to see the call of Gideon. 118 of the Blue Bible.
I said it. Oh, sorry.
We're there. We made it. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under Terebinth in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. Right, should have studied that. While the son of Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide from who? The Midianites. Because the Midianites were doing what?
Oppressing him.
No, specifically how were they oppressing him?
Food.
They were stealing their stuff. So Gideon's hiding. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." And Gideon said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian." And the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you?" And he said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." And the Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man." And he said to him, If now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who speaks with me. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out a present and set it before you." And he said, "I will stay until you return." So the angel of the Lord appears to Gideon. Gideon is where?
He's hiding.
He's hiding. He's in a wine press, removing the chaff from the wheat. You guys ever seen that process? Do you know what that process looks like?
Yeah.
It's a local Walmart. They do it in the back. What you do is you take the wheat and you throw it in the air, and the little kind of wheat coverings, the little shells, do what? They fall off and they fly away. Usually where you do this sort of work, you think where? If you need wind, where do you do this? You do it outside? In the winter time? You do it outside, you do it where else? Up high. You try to get high. You try to go up to the highest spot you can because there's the most wind. Guess where this wine press is?
Underground.
Not quite underground. It's down low and it's inside. And so the angel of the Lord shows up to Gideon and he says, "Oh, mighty man of valor." Do mighty men of valor typically hide in wine presses?
I do.
When you think of a powerful person, somebody who should be feared, do you think of somebody hiding somewhere? No, that's not who comes to mind. That's not who comes to mind. Right? Verse 12, Gideon is the exact opposite of a valiant warrior. He's literally as far opposite as you can get. Not only is he so far opposite that he's hiding in a wine press, but when the angel of the Lord shows up to him, what does he say? Huh? Show me a sign. Let me prove that it's you. I need you to go and vanquish your enemies. I don't want to go do that. I need you to know for a fact that you're... If you guys know the story of Gideon, this is not the last time that this happens. God is addressing Gideon as the man he would become by God's help, not the man he was. God saw Gideon as the man he was going to become, not the man who he was. Because Gideon, as he stands right now, is a coward. And realistically, if you read the story of Gideon, it doesn't much change. But God needs him to be a mighty man of valor. God is going to give him that ability. And he sees him as who he's going to be, not who he is. Verse 13, Gideon says something. God, if you were really with us, why is all this happening? Had God left Israel? No. Who left? Who left? Israel did. Israel was under bondage because of their sin, because of their actions. We go back to the prophet listed at the very beginning. What does he say? You have not obeyed. This is why this is happening to you. You haven't obeyed. And Gideon says, well, God, if you're really God with us, why is all this happening to us? You've got to understand, God did not leave them. They left God. God did not turn his back on them. They willfully went. And now all of a sudden they're reaping the rewards of leaving. And all that to say, now they don't know what's going on. Sins, not afflictions, argue God's absence. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? We tracking with what that means?
Yeah.
Sins, not afflictions, argue God's absence. Is God present even when life is getting hard? Even when things are not going the way you want them to? Yes, God is still present. However, the greatest argument for God's absence is what? Not when life is difficult, but when what? When we're sinning. When sin is involved. When we turn our back on God and we start going the way we want it to be, he says that is the greatest argument God's no longer there. Not afflictions, not hardships, not pain and suffering. What was Gideon focused on? The afflictions, the suffering, the hardship, the misery. They're stealing all our stuff. He says, God, you're not present because they're stealing our stuff. And what's God saying? I'm not present because of the way you're acting. You've turned on me. I didn't turn on you. You've left. So the first application goes like this. God might feel absent because you've turned from Him. In your life right now, you say, I don't really feel God. I don't think God's very close to me. The first question has got to be based upon this. Have you turned from God? Huh? Are you allowing sin to destroy your life? Are you allowing sin to wreck you? Are you allowing sin to creep into your life and turn you from God? God may feel absent because you are sinning, because you've turned from God. Gideon blamed God for the suffering Israel's sin caused. So, Gideon blamed God for the suffering Israel's sin had caused. So in an effort to kind of get through this, we won't read everything in here word for word. Judges 6:28 through 35, Gideon destroys the altar to Baal in his dad's backyard. After the angel of the Lord proves to Gideon that he is the angel of the Lord, the angel of the Lord tells Gideon to go do what, you think? Go destroy the altar in your dad's backyard. What does Gideon go do? He goes destroy the altar in his dad's backyard. He destroys this altar. That's the first step in what he's supposed to be doing. And I really love verse 32. Judges chapter 6, 32. The town comes out to Gideon's dad and said, hey, you need to go kill your son. He's destroyed this altar to Baal. And his dad basically says, listen, if Baal has a problem with it, Baal can deal with it. Like, I'm not stressed about this. He destroyed the altar. If Baal really has a big issue with what he's just done, we'll let Baal take care of it. Ultimately, what happened? Did Gideon die by the hand of Baal? No, Gideon did not die. But his dad says, if Baal has a problem, let him deal with it. And ultimately, Gideon survives and the entire town turns to God, including his father. So Judges 36 and 40. Let's read Judges 6, 36 through 40. This is kind of the most famous passage in the story of Gideon. It's about the fleece. So he's already been shown signs. We've got to understand this. He's already been shown signs. He's already shown acts of obedience. He's destroyed the thing in his dad's backyard. And now, once again, God says, I need you to go and deal with the problem. Then Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, behold, I am laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry all on the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said. And it was so. When he arose early next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung out enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. Then Gideon said to God, let not your anger burn against me. Let me speak just once more. Please, let me test just once more with the fleece. Please let it be dry on the fleece only, and all the ground there be dew. And God did so that night. And it was dry on the fleece only, and all in the ground there was dew. So what does he say? What does he want? He wants another sign. He says, God, you've already proven to me, you've already shown me. If you're really going to do what you said you're going to do, I need to do a little test. Is Gideon a mighty man of valor, you think? No. Gideon is still kind of a coward. And he has no faith. He has spoken to God directly, and even then he decides to test him. It's amazing to me. This is just an aside. It's amazing to me. We always think, man, how awesome would it be to talk to God, to actually speak and commune and have fellowship and talk and speak and ask him questions. Most of the time in the Bible, the people who talk to God are doing stuff like this. The other half usually are arguing with him. And it's amazing to me to have this opportunity to talk to God, and they're like, you know what, I don't really think it's you. We're going to have to put about 15 tests through this and see what happens. And the other half are like, God, you know what, you messed up. And God's like, oh, again. So, these are the people who are talking to God. We got to understand, Gideon's test does not show his faith. Sometimes we use the fleece as an idea of faith, of showing faith, and saying, man, you got to have enough faith to put out this fleece. That's not what it shows. It shows his lack of faith. God has told him specifically to do something, and Gideon's like, sure, I'm going to go do that. But first, I need you to do something. First, I have an idea. Let's do this instead. He doesn't show his faith. It shows his lack of faith. He's putting trust in other things other than what God has told him to do. Putting out the fleece is not only evidence of unbelief, but it is also an evidence of our pride. God has to do what I tell him to do before I'll do what he tells me to do. Warren Wiersbe. It's this idea of saying, God, I'm only going to do what you tell me to do after you do what I tell you to do. We're going to make a deal. I'm going to go destroy the Midians, but first, you're going to cover this fleece with dew. What? It shows this unbelievable lack of faith. Putting this on God, saying, I'm only going to do this if you do this. Application, don't put stipulations on your obedience. When God calls you to do something, whether by Scripture or by leading of the Holy Spirit, what are you supposed to do? Do it. Don't say, God, I'm only going to go talk to that friend. I'm only going to go witness that person. I'm only going to invite that person to church. I'm only going to go help this person out as long as you cover this fleece and dew. And then, I'm on it. I'm ready. Right? Oh, God, I'll go help that person as long as you give me an A on my test next period that I didn't study for. I'm on it. I'll do it. As soon as that happens, I'm ready. What does God want? What's obedience? But also, is God merciful? What does He do for Gideon? He does what He asks. But we've got to be careful. Don't take from this event and this recounting of this that that's what you're supposed to do. That's the model of perfect faith. That whenever God commands you to do something, you're like, yes, now I've got to go lay out my fleece in my front yard and hope for the best. This is not the model of perfect faith. Gideon is the exact opposite of all those things. He's a coward who has no faith. And so the event continues. And like I said, we're not going to read the whole thing. But Gideon finally decides now he's ready to go face Midian. And he calls out people. And he has an army of about 32,000 soldiers ready to fight Midian. They're ready. They're prepared. However, is God pleased with that number? No. Does that number go up or down? Down. God is not pleased with the number of 32,000. Chapter 7, verse 2 tells you why. God is more chapter 7, verse 2. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give to the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, my own hand has saved me. What is this problem? He doesn't want Israel to say, we did it by ourselves. We went out to face the Midians and we killed all of them because we are so many. God is more concerned with teaching us trust than giving us victory. Could God have defeated Midian with 32,000 soldiers? Yes. Could God have just sent Gideon out that day and just done it? Yes, but God is trying to teach Gideon something. Like I said, this story, this event focuses on the judge, not the event. It focuses on the judge. He's trying to teach Gideon something. He's trying to teach him trust. God is more willing, God is more concerned with teaching us trust than giving us victory. You guys ever heard the phrase, you learn more in failure than you do in success?
Oh, yeah.
It's the same idea. Sometimes we need to fail to truly understand. Just because you failed once, does that make you a failure? No. No, it does not. So, then he tells them, well, tell everybody who's scared to go ahead and leave. And 22,000 went away. How many does that leave us with now? 10,000. So we went from 32,000. He says, man, if they're scared, let them go home. 22,000 leave. That would have been very demoralizing. You ever had 22,000 people walk away from you? Whew. Especially if you're getting ready to fight. I'm sure Gideon went out thinking, oh yeah, like, who's going to leave? 22,000, like, you know what? That sounds like a good plan. If you want to go home and hang out with your family, you guys go do that. And 22,000 were like, that actually sounds all right. Let's go do that thing. And so they leave. Verse 4, chapter 7, verse 4 tells you what? There's still too many. There's still too many. He then goes on to say, tell them to get a drink of water, and everybody who gets down on all fours and drinks out of the stream are to go home. Everyone who gets down on all fours to drink water can leave. 9,700 of them leave. How many does that leave us? 300. At this point, God says He's ready. It's time. That made the ratio of Midianite to Israelite soldiers about 450 to 1. 300 versus this huge army. What God was doing, you got to see, it's this cool picture. God gives Gideon security by the fleece, right? He gives him security by the fleece. God, I need you to do this for me so that I can know you're with me. He does it twice, and finally Gideon's like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then God whittles down his army. So God is now removing the security. He's removing the security that He gave him with the fleece. He's trying to teach him something. He's trying to show him something. He gave him security with the fleece, and now He removes the fleece from him. and removes his army and says, I still need you to go do this. I still need you to go do this. There are times in our life when God is going to cause us and force us to trust Him. He says, I still need you to go do this. He's removing the security from him. So verse 10 through 11, is Gideon now all figured it out and he's ready and stuff? No. Over half of this story is dealing with Gideon's insecurities and fear. Maybe that should be an encouragement to us. Gideon is still not ready to go. Gideon is still not ready to go. And God says, if you are scared, you can go down to their camp and listen. Go down to their camp and see what's going on. And he does that. And as he goes down to the camp, he hears them telling a dream that basically says, I had a dream that the Israelites were going to overtake us and kill us. You've got to understand the insanity of what is happening right now. God specifically has talked to Gideon. Right? Are we tracking with that? Okay. God has specifically talked to Gideon, verbally talked to Gideon, and told Gideon to do one thing. What was his job? Go destroy the Midianites. Go take them. I've got you. We're going to have your back. Gideon still refuses to do it after everything that has just happened. And God says, if you're still scared, go down to their camp and do what? Listen. So Gideon only becomes brave enough to go do it, not because God has talked to him, not because of the signs he's seen, not because of all the stuff he's already witnessed, not because of God's faithfulness up to him until this point, because of what? What he hears, what somebody down the camp says. Chapter 7, verse 14, and his comrade answered, this is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand the Midian and all of the camp. It's insane. So now Gideon's fired up. As soon as Gideon heard that, verse 15, as soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretations, he worshipped and he returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise. He basically goes back right then and says, guys, get up, we're going right now. I have finally figured this out. I'm finally excited enough to go. Arise. For the Lord has given the host of the Midian into your hand, and he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets into their hands of all of them and empty jars with torches inside the jars. Verse 17, and he said to them, look at me and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, and all who are with me, then blow the trumpets also, and every side of the camp shout for the Lord and for Gideon. And what ends up happening is, in the fray, in the mess, the Midianites basically killed themselves. Gideon is finally ready to go do it because of what he hears down in the camp. And so Gideon does that, and he defeats the Midians. And he chases the Midians down. He chases the Midians down after this and finally slaughters them all. Interestingly enough, in chapter 7, 19 through 23, we find out that these kings actually personally killed Gideon's brothers. It's kind of an interesting aside. Gideon then decides it's time for the kings to die. He was going to let them live until he found out they killed his brothers, and he tells his son to kill them. And his son, being a young boy, was like, I'm not going to do that. And so Gideon ends up killing him. But after this, Gideon's life does continue on. And we see something very interesting about Gideon. Go to verse 22. What is the title of 22? 7:22. What does it say? Up top. Oh, I'm sorry, 8:22. I apologize. 8:22.
Gideon's legacy.
Gideon's legacy. So I'm going to say Gideon's ephod. Gideon's ephod. So Gideon collects all the gold from the camp. Verse 22. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us, you and your sons and your grandsons also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian. And Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. They asked him to become king. What does Gideon say? No bueno. You're going to do that. But, he says, but, bring me all your gold. Bring me all your money. And I will make a 45-pound gold ephod. You know what an ephod is?
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen one before. This is an ephod.
Oh, yeah.
This is an ephod. It basically makes a 45-pound solid gold shirt This is what the high priest would have worn to go see God. So what does Gideon make himself? He makes himself the priest. He makes himself their leader. Even though he's not their king, what's kind of weird is he does this. And the Bible says that this caused the people to stumble. Verse 27. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in the city of Ophrah. And all Israel whored after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and his family. So Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and there they raised their heads no more. And the land had rest 40 years in the days of Gideon. Gideon makes himself the high priest, and the whole country just kind of runs after this, and they worship this, and they chase this. This was Gideon's ephod. His life and legacy were not very good. Gideon proved courageous in the battle finally, after long ado, but could not carry the courage and faith into his everyday life. Even though Gideon was ready and prepared and fought the battle and won the battle, he could not take this into his everyday life. And he fell. He ends up producing this ephod. He allows it to be worshipped. He allows himself likewise to be worshipped. Verse 28, this is the last period of peace mentioned in Judges. Remember, what is Judges? It's a big what? Cycle. It's a big cycle. We have now kind of reached the end of a piece of that cycle. Verse 28 is the last time peace is mentioned in the book. So, as they continue to decline and as things continue to fall apart, Israel no longer has peace. They're broken. And it's a broken mess. Sin always leads to brokenness. It always leads to slavery. Israel is beginning to enter into that where they will have no more peace. Gideon is a man God used in spite of himself. In spite of everything Gideon tried to do not to be used and not to be useful and not to be ready to go, God still used him. God was still able to use him. A man who was a coward till the end of his life, a man who required more miracles than any other person seen to be recorded in history, a man who never could quite get it figured out until he heard it from somebody else other than God. I mean, explain that. God still used him. God can use anybody. And God has used him. This is an interesting idea of God using somebody in spite of themselves. So this is it. In closing, the last application is this. We can trust God to make us who He needs us to be. As you look at faith and as you look at trust and as you look at God and you pray about what God needs you to be, we see from the life of Gideon, God made Gideon who He needed him to be. He stands up. The first thing He says to Gideon, who was hiding in a wine press at the bottom of a mountain so nobody finds him, says, "You are a mighty man of valor." Not because Gideon was a mighty man of valor, because that's who God was going to make him. That's who God needed him to be, and that's what God was going to do. So do not be worried, do not be stressed, do not sit here like we say almost every week through this study, feeling that you cannot be used. You can trust God to finish the work He has started in you. You can trust God to make you who He needs you to be to accomplish His will. It's a powerful testament. And if you ever feel useless, if you ever feel like a coward, if you ever feel like your life's falling apart, read the life of Gideon. The guy was a mess from beginning to end. And it only gets worse from here. It just goes downhill. His son is not awesome. It only goes downhill from there. We can trust God to make us who He needs us to be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pray. And we'll do something. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank You for this evening, Lord. We thank You for the story of Gideon and what it shows us. How You show us the man and his shortcomings, Lord, and how we can trust You through that and what all that means. Lord, I pray that You be with us this week as we remember that, as we think through that. Lord, I pray that there'll be an encouragement to us and give us the ability to go forward with more confidence, knowing that You've got our back, and that You know who we need to be. And all these things in Jesus' name.